Hey everyone, here's just a quick video about this really wild drum beat that Gene Krupa played in the 1940s with his big band on the tune Drum Boogie. And I've always loved this thing, and I think it's really cool and interesting for a few reasons. So I guess I'll just play it first and then maybe talk about it for a minute. So here it is. I've always loved that thing. I mean, it sounds almost like a 1960s rock beat. I've played that for people, just that drum part, and said, what year do you think this is from? And nobody thinks it's from the early 40s. You can hear Gene Krupa play this on various versions of Drum Boogie that he recorded with his big band in the 40s, and you can see him play it in the 1941 movie Ball of Fire with Barbara Stanwyck and Gary Cooper, which is a fun movie to watch anyway. And you can hear the eighth notes he's playing are very straight. That arrangement that he had of Drum Boogie, it was kind of that boogie-woogie 8/8 feel, where the eighth notes were a little bit straighter, and depending on what tempo they played it at, the eighth notes could be really straight. Obviously, if they played it faster, the eighth notes would be straighter. And that particular pattern, which Gene Krupa would go into near the end of the arrangement, he would usually play that pretty straight, and that's obviously what makes it sound like a rock beat. And it's eighth notes with his left hand on the half-open hi-hat, and then with his right hand on the floor tom, he's really just playing the jazz ride cymbal beat, but again, like a straight eighth version of this. 4 on the bass drum, and then he would sometimes mix up the pattern on the floor tom with his right hand a little bit. Like he would do things like So again, I just always have loved that. Not only does it sound like something that drummers would be playing 25 years later in a completely different style of music, but also the way he played it, that he's playing it open-handed, riding the hi-hat with his left hand instead of crossing over. And that kind of open-handed playing is something that would become more popular many, many decades later, but very few people were doing that kind of thing in 1941. And it makes sense, because if you were going to play that same pattern but in the normal way that a right-handed drummer would play it, of riding the hi-hat with your right hand and crossing over, it would be a little awkward. You'd have to play it like this, which you can do, but it just makes more sense to play it this way. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this was it just shows you Gene Krupa's facility, his creativity and his facility on the drums, that he wasn't boxed in to leading with his right hand or one way of doing things. It reminds me, maybe a year ago, I made a video about a pattern that he played on Caravan, and that's a double stroke roll around the drums that he started with his left hand in a way that's kind of counterintuitive for a right-handed drummer to play. And Gene Krupa did a lot of stuff like that, and I read an interview with him one time where he talked about practicing starting different patterns and rhythms with his right hand versus his left hand and the difference that it made. And as far as I can tell, it seems like with all of these things, he would get the musical idea and then just adapt his technique to whatever was required to play that idea. Instead of having, one way, being right-handed, always leading with his right hand or starting patterns with his right hand, instead of being boxed in to that kind of way of playing, he had enough command of the instrument that he could just play these things however it was necessary to play it to get the sound that he wanted. And I feel that as much credit as Gene Krupa gets in some ways, he obviously gets a lot of credit for his amazing showmanship and for bringing attention to the drums and for popularizing drum solos, and obviously he completely deserves all of that. But I feel that he sometimes doesn't get as much recognition for, again, just his creativity and his command of the instrument. And he's obviously just one of the greatest players in drumming history, and just little things like this always remind me of just how great he was. So I hope you enjoyed that. You can can have fun playing that for your friends and having them try to guess what it's from. And